Zerker Barbarian has proven himself as one of the most solid starters into the ladder thanks to magic damage, ability to stack magic and gold find, absolutely broken item find skill, and budget access to Travincal. All of this makes him really great at rune finding, MFing and gambling. And today I'm happy to show you my experience at building him up and getting up to speed in your journey. Zerker Barb utilizes skill Berserk that deals magic damage, which means that there are almost no immunities to his attacks and gives him massive advantage. That comes with a cost, inability to life or mana leech. Therefore, you need to always have full belt of rejuves and mana potions. He has great crowd control with house skill that makes every monster except elite packs to run away from you, making it easy to single target those mobs that always drop goodies. And on top of that, his find item skill that has been buffed with a find potion synergy not so long ago allows you to turn players 1 bodies into players 3 easily and closer to players 5 with the best gear, which is quite an advantage in Travincal if you search for runes. Lastly, he is arguably cheaper to build with your top end gear requiring Enigma, Grief and Charm rune, and not Infinity, Griffin's Eye or Death's Fathom. Also, Barb torches are very cheap, even super early in the ladder. Hopefully I managed to convince you to give it a try, and let's look at how to build him from zero. Obviously, leveling will be very different depending on how you start, solo, single player or online in a group. In a group, you start as a full support barbarian, primarily focusing on potion finds for your Zerks, collecting loot for gold after everyone and getting at least some points into leap for crowd control. Later on, you start using find item to help catch some nice finds in Nightmare and Hell, while also pumping points into battle orders. These will be very useful for your team to get through the game. Once you beat Hell and you split up from the group, switch into Warcry Barb. A little more on that later, let's look first at the solo experience. Solo road here will be a little tougher and definitely longer, but it is a steady pace. Typically you start as a double swing Barb with early points going into Mace Mastery and double swing. Pick up some decent scepters from Akara and get swinging. Your primary goal is to get all the needed runes from the Countess. Tier L for Steel, Tal for poison damage, can also get ETH LF for Malice for bosses and Tal F for stealth. Shop for 2 and 3 socketed flails at Farah and keep swinging until Bale. You can and should level up a bit at Eldritch with Pindo. Also, if you get Amrune, make strength for crushing blow. At Nightmare you should switch to Warcry. Just get points into 1-point wonders, leap and rest into Warcry and its synergies. In the beginning of Nightmare you will stay at Countess until you can make 2 Spirit Swords. Bases could be hard to find, but at least one should drop, or make it at Larzuk. In case second one doesn't come, shop Akara for FCR and Mana Wand. Speaking of mana, this one is going to be your main issue with Warcry, so getting early insight even in normal base is also very much recommended. As always, shop at Charcy and Geet for belts, boots and gloves to cover up your missing resistances. Now you just need to patiently get through the game. Thanks to stun effect from Warcry, you should not have many challenges on your way. Getting Crushing Blow weapon for yourself and Mercenary will help quite a lot with bosses. Use Concentrate for that. Now, after finishing Hell, or actually getting to Pindle in Act 5, make sure to level up at least to 80, otherwise your chance to hit will be very low. That will complicate things quite a bit. Now you need to get your Zerker weapon before switching to the main build. Luckily there are quite a few doable cheap candidates for a weapon. Playing online also gives you massive advantage in buying those for a very cheap price, or selling a couple of items for the required runes. Offline you will have to settle with rune words, as finding specific uniques can be very challenging. For requiring runes you can always run LK. So let's take a look at the options. Alright, let's take a look at the available options for the weapons. So first of all, let's look at the 3 unique items that are typically quite easy to get and very cheap to buy. So first of all is a Razor's Edge, unique Tomahawk. This one has 40 IAS, decent damage, minus target defense that will help you a lot to hit things, deadly strike and open wounds. Very good candidate. Then secondary, this is a Butcher's Pupil. Make sure to up it of course, because it's an exceptional base cleaver. This is indestructible as well, which is very nice. Also has IAS, decent damage, added damage, deadly strike and open wounds. Once again, very decent option for Berserker Barb. And lastly, another unique, which is Head Striker Battle Sword. You can also up it, but it would require quite some strength, so take a look at this first. The most advantage here is a huge deadly strike, so you will always deal double damage pretty much, and it prevents monster heal. The only problem that it does not have attack speed, which will make it a little bit slower. Now let's also take a look at the options from the rune words. So 3 arguably easy rune words that can actually deal good damage are, first of all, the Insight rune word in a staff. Here your choice should be only Elder Staff or Shilela. Those can have maximum 4 sockets, so if you find one you can already Larzuk at the, well, Larzuk quest, and also they have the best attack speed, while maintaining really good average damage. So again, Ral Tier Tal Soul for Insight, very easy to do, but again you will lose quite some things here, so you don't have attack speed here, also it will require you to two-hand it, so this is going to be a little bit problematic for the Cannot Be Frozen or Resistances. Then the next one is Unbending Will. This one is also kind of a good option, but it's really hard to make because the only 2 bases, elite bases of swords that can do it are Phase Blade and Colossus Blade. Phase Blade is arguably better because it doesn't have any durability, also has minus 30 base attack speed, which is very high. So this one is Fal Ayo Ith Eld El Hell, not too hard to farm from the Hell Countess for example, but still could take a while. The most advantage here of course again increased attack speed and huge enhanced damage, so this is pretty decent weapon of choice. And lastly, I think my favorite from the low level runes is Oath. This one is arguably need to be done in the Cryptic Sword or the Conquest Sword. Both have really high damage, while also maintaining still lower requirement in strength and dexterity. Do not ever do it in a normal one, you need a ethereal one, which can take of course quite a while to find, but with your find item you may score one sooner or later. It is important also to know that these 2 bases have maximum 4 sockets, so again, as soon as you find ethereal one, without any sockets, go to Larzuk and get your 4 sockets. The most problem here is that it rolls from 240 to 340 I believe, and if you get lowest roll it could be a little bit painful. However, still highest attack speed increase, decent damage, preventing monster heal, all of this makes it really good weapon. And finally, obviously when deciding how many stat points to put when you are switching to Zerker Barb build, of course make sure to have enough strength and dexterity for your weapon. Alright, so you're ready to switch to Zerker Barbarian, you've got your weapon. Let's now take a look at the skill build. So first of all we're going to look at the combat skills. Of course, Berserk is our main skill of choice. 20 points here, 100%. It has 2 synergies, Howl and Battle Orders. However, we take 1 point into Leap just to be able to reposition ourselves and stun enemies a little bit with the knockback. So this is also very helpful in many situations. Then Combat Masteries. So arguably going with a sword one is the most profitable one, so take 20 hard points into Blade Mastery and 1 point in each of the 1 point wonders, increase speed, Iron Skin and natural resistances. And Warcries is where everything can vary a little bit from build to build. Arguably we need some points into Battle Orders, Battle Command. Also we try to get as much find item as possible and decent level of Howl. So let's take a look what I did. I put 10 base points into find item and fully synergized find potion. So my find item chance now 64%, excuse me, and can also be like up to 75 with a top end gear. Then, since we are Zerker Barbarian on a budget, we need quite a high life pool, which could be a little bit difficult to achieve with the weapon requirements. So here that's why I put 10 base points or 11 even into Battle Orders, and I would recommend to push it further when you level up even more. In order to make our life a little bit easier, also we put another synergy 10 points into Howl, so that the radius and duration is manageable enough for us to howl everything away. Now let's take a look at the stats. So first of all, as I already mentioned, we need our base strength enough to wear the weapon. So I went with the Oath rune word in a Conquest Sword, so I need 132 base strength points. At the same time we also need enough dexterity, of course. I went for 109 and the rest in vitality, because our high life pool is very important. Since as a Berserk we are not able to leech life back, we really need to be very efficient with our life pool and have as much as possible. Alright, let's talk about gear. One first and the most important thing here for any barbarian, especially Zerker one, is the source of cannot be frozen. There are arguably 4 easy ways to get it, and one which is ideal. So let's look at the easy ways to get it. First of all, it's a rhyme rune word, Shael F, in a large shield or bone shield or any other one. So this makes you cannot be frozen, gives you resistances, gold fine, NMF. Really good option. Second one, which is also probably the next easiest to get, is a Dev's Guard. Set sash that provides you cannot be frozen. Now you can upgrade your set items to the exceptional, so this is going to be Demon Hide sash, which will make it way better choice. Although it only has cannot be frozen, no other stats. The easiest way to get it is to gamble with a level 13 character. This will take you probably 2 million gold, but that's not so much. Probably 40 minutes of gambling. Then the third option is the armor. The Spirit Shroud also provides cannot be frozen and 1 to all skills with magic damage reduced by 8. And I think out of all these 4 ones, Triangul's Girth is probably the best one, provides lots of life, mana and cannot be frozen as a belt slot. Very decent option as well. For our showcase I will go with a rhyme because this is probably the most straightforward to achieve, and yeah, let's take a look at the gear and at the options we have. Alright, so the gear is, let's start with the gloves. Arguably the only useful one that you can use is Laying of Hands. This one provides you attack speed and damage to demons with fire res. This one is the most important for Travincal. However, if you farm Eldritch or Pindo exclusively, then you can go with Chance Guards, or maybe your normal rare gloves with 20 IES and some MF and resistances, that will work too. For the weapons, we already spoke about it, so I will skip it. Then headgear, probably the easiest ones to get are the Lore Runeword or the Peasant Crown. This one provides good faster run walk, vitality and energy, which is not too bad, and 1 to all skills. Of course, later on you want to get your hands on the Ariad's Face or Harlequin Crest, the Shaco. So these two are pretty good options. As for the amulet, I highly recommend you to get the Rising Sun. Offline could be a little bit difficult, then use something like this with the resistances and skills, maybe some MF as well, but online you should definitely buy the Rising Sun. The most important here is of course the flat fire absorb, which will make Hydras to pretty much heal you at Travincal. As we already said, we use Rhyme Shield for the cannot be frozen. However, if you go with anything else, with the belt slot for example, or the armor one, then you have different options, for example Ancient's Pledge if you need more resistances, or maybe even Storm Shield for more damage reduction, because council members can hit you really hard. Now let's take a look at the boots. These ones provide just dual resistance and some MF. Ideally you also want to have some faster run walk, or for example you can use Hotspur, that is C3, which you will probably never find, or the Inferno Stride. This one provides also decent fire res, maximum fire res and extra gold. As for the rings, of course you could use Dwarf Star, however I would recommend to use something with damage, attack rating and resistances, so some rare rings like this would definitely work. As for the belt, once again, if you don't use cannot be frozen on a belt slot, then String of Ears for damage reduction is great, also for magic damage reduction, or you could also use Verdangos for more life pool, or maybe Gold Drop if you feel very steady and you need a bit more attack speed with extra gold and MF. And lastly, as our armor, I prefer to use Lionheart on a budget because it provides enhanced damage, decent boost to all your attributes, life and resistances, while only requiring Hell, Lam and Foul. You could arguably go with a Smoke for more resistances if you miss those, or take a look at the Myth Runeword for more skills for Barbarian, or maybe even Treachery, so the choices are there. And on a swap in Travincal and pretty much everywhere I would recommend you to use Blades of Alibaba or Gall Daggers. Gall Daggers can be gambled again at level 11 I think, and Blades of Alibaba can be either bought or found quite easily. So this will make you find a lot of gold and also a lot of unique items. And of course your inventory shouldn't be as empty as mine, but rather consist of maximum damage and attack rating, charms, or any charms that you miss resistances for. Additionally, Gold Find or Magic Find could be also really nice. And finally your Mercenary. He will have really hard times to survive in Travincal, especially on a budget, almost impossible, so kind of forget about it. But if you, for example, farm Eldritch and Pindo, then you should definitely get your insight to avoid any problems with mana, maybe in some lightweight base so that you don't need that much strength on him, and then you can use, for example, Stone Rune Word or Gladiator's Bane if you can buy it or find, or Treachery, which is typically the best choice early on. As for the helmet, something with Life Leech will be very much needed, something like Crown of Thieves, or maybe Andario's Visage later on, or anything in between. And in the end of our stats we have something about 3k damage of the Berserk, which is very decent with our Oath Rune Word. We have decent attack rating, 6.2k, which should be of course a little bit higher, about 8k, but with charms you can get there. We have 2.5k life, which is not the best, but will be definitely enough in the beginning. And after all, we also wear a little bit of Magic Vine. On a swap we have 217 and 500 extra gold. This will of course be good enough for almost any place you farm in. Without Enigma you are very limited in terms of efficient farming, and that is important to state. Efficient means you get more or less one elite pack per 8-10 seconds. Even though you can farm lots of places with Berserk's magic damage, this will typically take you a lot of time to run around to the destinations like the Pit or Stony Tombs. With that in mind, your primary places are Eldritch, Bindle and Travincal. For the latter you can apply for residence and stay there until you farm out Grief and Enigma runes. As for the non and ladder players, you could also run majority of Act 1 terror zones. They are typically quick to farm and monsters are pretty weak. That is probably the main disadvantage of the build, little variability in early farm. However, that applies to most of the builds in Diablo 2. There are a bunch of different nuances and topics to cover when talking about Zerker, and I will do so in a separate build guide. Meanwhile, take a look at what this build can do in Travincal in this video. Thank you for watching.